You gotta put up the big front so that people will trust them with their money.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Price Check episode 21. My name is Octavian, and I would like to give anybody who's new to the series a quick overview of what it is we're going to be doing here. Let me just go into D&D mode real quick so we don't get interrupted. We're going to be grabbing a full stash tab worth of loot here, unidentified, IDing it, pricing it as I go, and figuring out exactly what things may or may not be worth. We are at the very start of the Abyss League for anybody watching this in the future, and there's a lot of new item bases, a lot of new item types, and the keen-eyed among you may spot down in the bottom right corner of that stash a already identified tentacle-covered shield that I've set aside with a fairly interesting mod that we're going to be pricing later. I'm not sure if it's going to be worth anything, but as I usually do in these episodes, and as I forgot to do back in episode 20, I do like to set aside something that I know has some value just in case the full stash tab of loot is all duds, which can, of course, happen, though it's less likely early in a league. Now, let's get started. Stygian Vises are pretty much the best belt base available right now. They are highly customizable, having the ability to throw an Abyss Jewel into their sockets. Then Abyss Jewels can have lots of different mods. Just glancing at these, we'll see we've got crit multi, cold damage spells, ES. That's actually a really good one, by the way. It's actually quite a good eye jewel. And then we've got fire res, life, some lightning damage, wide variety of stats these can get, which makes these belts really, really customizable and thus really useful for pretty much any build. This one's got life, some stats, some flask charges gained. You're looking for the same thing you are on other belts. It really only is a different implicit, but that implicit is so much stronger than pretty much any implicit another belt can offer that I doubt, unless these two are really good, they're going to be worth anything, because everybody's using Stygian Vise or the Darkness Enthroned, which is a Stygian Vise. So we'll hold on to this. This one's got life, 2 res, and flask charges. Even then, though, Stygian Vises have to be pretty good to sell because there's so many of them dropping. And this is sort of, one of the basic concepts of economy. Supply can sometimes outweigh demand. So despite the fact that this belt is pretty good, I am only actually going to list this at like 1 chaos. 2 resistances, a life roll, and flask charges gained in the first week of a league in previous leagues on a belt. On a good base, that would have been worth a lot, but this league, with how many belts are dropping all over the place for everyone all the time, maybe not so much. The fact that it only requires level 39 is pretty good, though, so maybe we put it at 2 or 3C. This could be useful for someone leveling. It is good, though, worth selling. Nothing to speak of here aside from 1 mediocre resist. No life means no deal. 71 life, but low on the resistances, and we have to be really strict on belts for reasons I just went over. 50 strength, life, and okay resist. I think room to craft and other. Strength should be a suffix, life a prefix, armor a prefix. That could be life and flat armor, so this could be a little bit more full up on mods than it looks, but it's a decent pair of gloves. No life roll, no deal, and 18 life gone. That's okay as well. We can maybe put that up for a chaos or 2. See if somebody wants to pick this up. It's a bit higher level requirement, no flask roll, no damage roll, but it's got more life than our old friend Torment Strap did. Without life or resists, well, with minimal life and resist, this will go the way of all other vendor trash, as will this. This has better life, but lacking in resist, and as well as that, they're not Stygian bases. 50 int is the only good roll to speak of here, though I guess 16 all-res is pretty good. There are new T1 rolls. 16 all-res is no longer perfect. You can go up to 18 all-res, I think, but that requires an I-level 86 base, and this is only I-82. 81 life, 33 cold resistance. Not particularly exciting. No accuracy, only the 1 resistance. And Eternal Version A is a good base, though. You could put this up for a chaos. It might sell, but it's a stretch. Nothing to speak of there. On a dagger like this, you'd be looking for spell damage, which is something we do have, but local LE damage, especially rolls that low, are not worthwhile. And same here. +1 to all attributes, not particularly impressive. +1 to socket of gems is a bit better, but life, ES, those sorts of things that we're looking for are not to be found. I don't think this one's worth much, but we did take a look at this one earlier. This is actually a fairly synergistic jewel. There's a lot of people who would want some flat cold damage to spells. Glacial Cascade, which is very popular, could scale off that decently well. Crit multi as well is really good, though with Glacial Cascade usually you go mines. And mines, if your mine kills something, technically you didn't. So you wouldn't be able to access that critical strike multiplier if you've killed recently. It would have to be some sort of self-cast Glacial Cascade or self-cast Cold Skill, which actually leads me more to think a Frostbolt build might want this. If that were a life roll, this would be really valuable. With an ES roll, it's less so because it is more of a life meta right now. But there may still be a build out there that wants this. It's fairly synergetic. The rolls are good. I think we can maybe squeeze 5 to 10 Chaos. I'm going to be optimistic and put it up for 10C. Decent find. A little bit difficult to price these right now because there's so little information on them. We're still in the first week of the league, but it is still the basics of pricing, I suppose, jewels with just a few more rolls thrown in. I will learn more and hopefully pass on more of that knowledge as we go. No life, no move speed, no resists on these boots. Same thing here. Well, 1 resist plus 8 life. And while cast speed is nice, it does need some sort of defensive stat alongside it. And actually, that wasn't that bad. We got a few decent results. I think most of what we have here we can just throw out for 1 Chaos, and it'll eventually just get vendored. We just do that with these. Maybe this, simply because of its lower level requirement and value as a leveling base, could go up for 2C. And this here, I wanted to start at 10. That's a 9. There we go. All right. We will move along to the rest of our eval tab and get to that juicy little tentacled spirit shield in the corner at the end of the episode. Now, if you have any suggestions for anything you'd like to see moving forward in Abyss League as far as this series is concerned, please do feel free to leave them in the comments. I do read every single comment I get, even if I don't respond to them all. And I try to respond to the ones that are direct questions for the most part. You can also feel free to come bug me on the Discord or hop into my stream. I do stream every single day for 8 hours a day, and you'll find the description below has a link to that. 83 life, but a little lacking on res, and even with a high flat armor roll, that's not a very valuable roll. 3 life, go away. 44 life, also. Some high-ish lightning damage to spells. Pretty good, actually, but nothing else to speak of. No life roll, good flat fizz, but that's about it. Avoid being chilled and frozen, not too great. And the flat rolls are not super synergetic. I don't think we'll be able to get that sold. 44 ES is all this can boast, aside from a bit of flat fizz, I suppose. No movement speed and horrible life. And as I usually do when we get later into the episode, after the first batch, I'm just going to start moving through these a little bit more quickly. No life, no movement speed, just so I'm not repeating myself and stretching out the episode longer than it needs to go. 97 life, a resist, and an armor roll. This is okay. It's lacking damage, it's lacking a second resist, but the good rolls that it has are very strong. We can maybe get a chaos out of it, so I'll go ahead and list it. These are both pretty garbage. And this is a meta where belts that aren't Stygian Vises have to not be garbage in order to be sellable. This is pretty awful as well. We are missing attack speed, crit multi, better LE rolls, basically everything. This is something that could have fetched a chaos in an earlier league, but with the existence of Stygian Vise, will not. 81 life. I've actually just pretty much stopped picking up rare belts altogether, unless they're in very high level maps. A lot of stats. A lot of stats. If it had a better life roll, I might try selling that for a chaos, but the life roll is a little bit too low. This one's lacking in resistances. This one as well. That one's got average written all over it, and it's just not quite good enough in any single department. And it looks like this whole inventory was a bust, aside maybe from that, like, 1 chaos odd belt or so. So we can throw that up. And one more go around. Just grab a few more of these just in case. Let's see what we've got. Here we go. We can take a look at that belt right afterwards. That belt? That shield. That's not a belt, Octavian. We can look at this belt and decide that it's vendor food. Movement speed is missing, as is life. Low life roll, sold to a vendor. That is a very high flat fire to attacks. What eye level is this jewel? It's item level 80. That's a very high flat fire level to attack. Flat fire damage to attacks, pardon me. Okay, cold damage, and I don't think that's a very good fizz, but I'm not certain on the rolls on that. I still have to educate myself a bit on the jewel rolls. We could maybe sell this for a few chaos, and I'll go ahead and list it. It's only 3 prop though, and getting these things with 4 prop is actually pretty easy given how many of them drop. The rest of these seem to just be missing life rolls. This one is, again, pretty damn mediocre, and this is a absolutely horrible helmet. That is a primer in every roll you're trying to avoid. Alright, well, we got an okay jewel that I might just pop up for 2C to start with. A closer look at my MTX, I suppose, when I accidentally scroll outside of my tabs, and let's look at that last shield. This here, Gale Mark, one of the new Elder Touched items. I think it's fairly low eye level, actually. Yeah, eye level 76, but it got pretty lucky on its rolls. It's got a real nice life roll of 97. Shields go up to about 120 now, or 111, 115, something around there. I still need to research all the T1 rolls since they have gone up. But 97 is perfectly fine. 44 cold res is T2, or I suppose maybe T3 now. I don't think they added any tier of resistances. But that last mod is the most interesting one. 1% increased damage per 1% block chance. Now, this shield just has 24% block chance base. So that's just 24% damage. Unless you're investing further, which, you know, a good amount of builds may do. My build, in fact, is actually looking to hit block cap with the right setup with flasks up. And that is another 75% damage potentially tacked onto this shield. So we could optimistically treat this as a shield, which in a max block build has, what is that? It's just about 50% spell damage plus 75. So that's 124% spell damage, 97 life, and 44 cold resistance. And it's really clean. It's got room for crafting. We can throw this in here and see what we can get. We can get a stat. We can get another resistance. We could even get more block chance on this in order to add 3% more damage. That doesn't seem particularly good. But yeah, another resist would probably be the best thing to get this showing up in searches. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll throw in lightning resistance. Get 27%. So you've got, you know, a good resist, a middle of the road one, a good life roll, and potentially over 100% damage in a block build. This seems really, really cool. And I honestly don't know exactly where to price it. So we're going to do a rather extensive search on this shield and do a few different searches here. Let me transition over to the browser. So we're going to go for a shield, obviously, let's put in a minimum of, say, 85 life as our maximum life. Or let's go with 80. I want to be real generous on our lower bound on life. Resistance, pseudo total elemental resistance of 6, let's say. 60, pardon me. It's been a long day. Live for about 10 hours or so today. For like the 5th day in a row, or however many days the league has been going. I've lost track. And what we're first going to do is look for a shield that just has a total spell damage roll of 90, if such a thing exists. I don't know how high it goes, including implicit. Let's see what we find. Literally nothing. Check offline as well. Alright, because in the right setup, this could actually be 100 plus spell damage. So let's look for like 75. And we'll just keep testing the waters here. 1 result for 2 exalts. Now, of course, this shield is not quite as good as just equip it, get all that spell damage. Because you need to invest in the build. You need to have a block-focused build. But it's possible. And I don't think we've quite got a 2 exalt shield in our hands. Though I could list it at such, and maybe we'll get a bite. But let's see if we can find another shield with the same mod. That would be comparable as well. So let's do another search here. Actually, what I can do is I can just copy paste this. And we can just edit the mods here. So we can leave the other one up to compare. So let's drop this and let's look for block chance. Should bring it up if we just go to Shaper, or it's an Elder mod. 1% increased damage per 1% block chance. And see what we find. 8 results. And we're starting at 30 chaos. So we do have a valuable item on our hands for sure. This one's got some cast speed, which could be really good. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is this is generic damage too. So it is even better than spell damage for some builds. Perhaps some sort of build that uses heralds to clear to some degree. Uses spell damage for their initial hits and then heralds to clear. Like an auto bomber could maybe want that generic damage. Though generally auto bombers dual wield something like a Doriani's Catalyst, and it depends. There's a lot of variety. That's the interesting thing about these. They have such, well, scope and depth, and they could be used in so many different possibilities. It's really, really fun. And as an aside, I am really enjoying this league. Props to GGG. Looks like these scale up in price pretty quickly, and I think a lot of these are a little bit optimistic, but they are actually, some of these higher end ones, pretty close to this 2x shield that we're seeing here. So I think we could actually, if I just wanted the money quickly, we could list this for around 1 exalt, and somebody looking for this might find our shield and be willing to pay that for it. This is a movement speed input instead of spell damage. This has more overall resistances than ours, 88%. This is the most directly comparable. It's got a slightly better life roll and also craftable resist, but it's got an all-res implicit, which I would argue is more valuable than the spell damage. So I think 1x is actually a pretty safe price point for us to start this at. Now, maybe this never sells. Maybe this just doesn't find a buyer who's interested in that modifier, but it's a risk I'm willing to take, and it's a really interesting piece of gear. So I think I've learned a thing or two. I hope you guys have as well. I'm going to go ahead and list this up. And I hope to see you all in the next episode. 22 should be coming out in 2 to 3 days. In the meantime, if you want some more Octavian, I do have another video in the works, but you can also always join me on my stream. As I've said a few times, I'm there every single day, and I'd be happy to have you along. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good night, everybody.